Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right into something absolutely fascinating today. The biological wiring diagram that lets you move and feel your arms. You know, if you've ever marveled at the sheer dexterity of the human hand, or, I don't know, the sheer power of a shoulder throwing a baseball, you're actually admiring the flawless execution of a very specific, highly complex bundle of nerves. So today, we're going to unpack exactly how that hidden machinery works.
Here is our quick roadmap for today. We'll start by meeting the brachial plexus, then break down its 5 core components. After that, we'll map out the nerve network, look at its blood supply, and finally, discuss what happens when these nerves get injured.
All right, section 1. Let's officially meet the brachial plexus.
So what is this thing? Basically, the brachial plexus is a massive, complex network of nerves. It's formed by what anatomists call the ventral rami of the lower cervical and upper thoracic spinal nerves. Specifically, we're talking about nerves C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. Put simply, this is the crucial central command line. It originates near your spinal cord and literally controls absolutely everything from your shoulder down to your fingertips. It provides both the motor innervation, so your ability to actually move your muscles, and the sensory innervation, which gives you the ability to feel touch, temperature, and pain in your arm.
Moving right along to section 2, the 5 core components.
The human body is incredibly organized, right? And this plexus is definitely no exception. Its architecture breaks down into 5 highly logical, sequential parts. Think of it like a giant tree branching out. The plexus starts with roots at the spine. Those roots merge into trunks. The trunks then split into divisions. Those divisions weave back together into cords, and finally, those cords splay out into individual branches. Roots, trunks, divisions, cords, branches. If you can just remember that sequence, you essentially hold the key to understanding your entire arm's nervous system.
Which brings us to section 3, mapping the nerve network.
Okay, let's trace this out. We start at the roots, formed by those C5 through T1 nerves we just talked about. Physically, right now in your own body, these roots are sitting up in your neck, passing cleanly between 2 specific muscles called the anterior and middle scalenes. And what's really wild here is that the branching starts immediately. Even way up in the neck, the roots give off the dorsal scapular nerve from C5 and the long thoracic nerve, which pulls from C5, C6, and C7. So the network is already delegating tasks before it even leaves your neck.
Now, moving just a bit further down into what's called the posterior triangle of the neck, those 5 roots merge to form 3 trunks. The underlying logic here is just beautiful. The top 2 roots, C5 and C6, join up to form the upper trunk. The middle root, C7, just kind of continues on its own to become the middle trunk. And the bottom 2 roots, C8 and T1, they join to form the lower trunk. And again, even these trunks give off early branches, like the suprascapular nerve and the nerve to the subclavius, straight from that upper trunk.
Continuing our journey downward as we slip right behind the collarbone, each of those 3 trunks splits into 2 divisions, an anterior division and a posterior division. So now we've got 6 divisions total. Why do they split exactly like this? Well, it's a brilliant functional divide. The anterior divisions are destined to innervate the flexor compartments of your arm, the muscles that bend your joints. Meanwhile, the posterior divisions are dedicated entirely to the extensor compartments, the muscles that straighten your joints out. It's an elegant, almost mechanical sorting system happening right there behind your collarbone.
Down we go into the axilla, which is just the anatomical term for the armpit. Here, those 6 divisions regroup into 3 cords. And here is a fantastic little bit of anatomical trivia for you. These cords are named strictly based on how they wrap around the axillary artery, which is the main blood vessel down there. The lateral cord is formed by the anterior divisions of the upper and middle trunks. The medial cord comes from the anterior division of the lower trunk. And the posterior cord is formed by a union of all 3 posterior divisions. They literally surround that artery like electrical cables running alongside a main water pipe.
When you trace this whole journey from root to branch, it really starts to click. You follow the roots, moving through the trunks, the divisions, the cords, and then finally splintering into the major terminal branches. This is where you get the major nerves that travel the rest of the way down your arm, like the musculocutaneous, the axillary, the radial, the median, and the ulnar nerves. Every single one of those major arm nerves has its origin perfectly mapped out in this woven structure.
Honestly, if you abstract all that messy organic biology into a simple flowchart, the system's underlying code becomes incredibly obvious. You can clearly see this elegant splitting and merging logic. We start with 5 simple nerve roots, merge them into 3 trunks, split them into 6 divisions, weave them into 3 cords, and finally distribute them into dozens of highly specific branches. It's a total marvel of biological engineering. Why? Because it ensures that even if one root is slightly compromised, the whole arm doesn't just shut down, because the signals are shared and interwoven.
Let's move on to section 4, blood supply. So nerves are incredibly hungry tissues. They need a ton of energy to function. The brachial plexus relies on a super robust blood supply delivered directly by branches of 4 major arteries: the subclavian artery, the axillary artery, the vertebral artery, and the deep cervical artery. And it makes perfect sense when you think about it. As this nerve plexus travels from the deep neck, under the collarbone and into the armpit, it draws its blood supply from the major blood vessels located in those exact same regional neighborhoods.
Finally, section 5. Let's talk about when nerves get injured.
So what actually happens when these specific, delicate biological wires are stretched, or compressed, or even severed? Because the brachial plexus is so specifically organized, damage to it doesn't just result in general arm pain, it results in highly specific, very predictable patterns of paralysis and numbness.
Because of the structured wiring we just learned about, doctors can pinpoint injuries with absolute precision. For instance, if a person experiences a trauma that forces their shoulder down and their neck to the opposite side, they might tear the upper trunk. Remember, that's C5 and C6. This results in something called Erb's palsy, where the arm just hangs by the side, rotated inward. Conversely, if you aggressively pull the arm upward, you might damage the lower trunk, C8 and T1. This causes Klumpke's palsy, which heavily affects the small muscles of the hand. And hey, remember that long thoracic nerve we saw branching off right at the very beginning in the neck? If that gets injured, it paralyzes a muscle holding your shoulder blade flat, resulting in a condition known as a winged scapula.
We also see conditions caused by compression over time. Take crutch palsy, for example. That happens when ill-fitting crutches constantly press up into the armpit, compressing that posterior cord we identified earlier, which leads to weakness in the extending muscles. There's also thoracic outlet syndrome, where the nerves get squeezed as they pass from the neck down to the arm. But you know, this precise map isn't just about diagnosing injuries, it's about medical solutions too. Doctors intentionally use this anatomy to perform brachial plexus blocks. By injecting anesthetics exactly where these trunks or cords are, surgeons can completely numb the arm for painless upper limb surgeries, entirely skipping the need to put the patient under general anesthesia. It's pretty amazing.
Ultimately, everything loops back to this foundational truth from our source materials. The brachial plexus plays a vital role in the movements and sensations of the shoulder, arm, forearm, and hand. Our most intricate human movements, writing a letter, playing the piano, lifting a heavy box, they rely entirely on this highly specific, beautifully organized biological network holding together.
So what's our big takeaway here? Well, anatomy isn't just a boring list of random parts to memorize. It's a profound story of functional design. The next time you simply reach out to grab a coffee cup, just consider the incredible journey those electrical signals took. From the roots in your neck, merging into trunks, dividing right behind your collarbone, weaving into cords in your armpit, and racing down terminal branches to your fingertips, and all of that happens in a fraction of a millisecond. It really leaves us to wonder just how much more hidden, brilliant machinery is operating flawlessly beneath our skin right now. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep staying curious about the incredible mechanics of the human body.